The late afternoon sun filtered through the canvas, casting long, golden shafts of light into the cramped tent where the three of us had gathered. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and the faint, musky odor of earth that clung to the relics spread out before us. Professor Harun Malik, with his graying beard and spectacles perched precariously on the bridge of his nose, was already deep into his work. His leather satchel lying open beside him, overflowing with notes, scrolls, and faded maps that looked as ancient as the myths he so loved. I watched him closely, my fingers absently tracing the edges of the living map that lay on the wooden table. It was as if the map itself pulsed with life, its surface subtly shifting in the dying light, the lines redrawing themselves with a slow, hypnotic grace. Lena stood silently near the entrance, her sharp eyes scanning every shadow beyond the tent's thin walls, her presence a steady reminder of the danger we faced. "You see," Malik began, his voice low but fervent, "these symbols you've uncovered here, they are more than mere markings. They are echoes of a story long forgotten, a myth intertwined with the very fabric of this land." I furrowed my brow, skepticism prickling at the edges of my mind. "A myth," I repeated, "but myths are stories, not facts. How do you propose we treat this map as anything more than an elaborate puzzle?" Malik chuckled softly, a sound like dry leaves rustling. But that is where you and I differ, Elias. My friend, the boundaries between myth and reality have always been porous. Sometimes, the oldest stories carry the deepest truths concealed beneath layers of time and belief." He leaned forward, his fingers dancing across the map's surface as it shimmered faintly. The symbols, curved lines, spirals, and angular figures seemed to rearrange themselves beneath his touch, as if responding to his knowledge. "This sequence here," he said, tracing a path with a trembling hand, "corresponds to the legend of the Dawn's Cradle, a place said to be the origin of the world's creation." Lena shifted, her gaze narrowing. "And you believe this map leads there?" "More than belief," Malik replied earnestly. "I am convinced. The map's transformations are not arbitrary. They reflect an ancient language, one that speaks of shifting lands and lost civilizations. It is a living testament to the cyclical nature of existence." I inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of his words settle over me. My scientific training urged caution, demanded proof, but the map beneath my fingertips whispered of mysteries beyond measurement. "How do you decipher these symbols?" I asked, leaning in closer. Malik smiled, a mixture of pride and exhaustion. "Years of study, countless nights poring over ancient texts, and a willingness to see beyond the obvious. Each symbol is a fragment of a larger narrative, a key to unlocking secrets buried beneath time's relentless march." As the evening deepened, Malik and I worked side by side, cross-referencing his notes with the map's latest dawn-transformed design. Lena joined in, her practical mind helping us piece together the puzzle, weaving strategy with scholarship. Outside, the world seemed to hold its breath. The distant calls of nocturnal creatures echoed softly, punctuated by the rustle of shifting sands. The map's glow intensified as dawn approached, casting ethereal shadows that danced along the tent's canvas walls. Then, as the first light broke, Malik's finger traced a complex spiral that had not been visible the day before. "Here," he whispered, "the spiral represents the convergence of the physical and the metaphysical, the point where history, myth, and reality intertwine. This is the map's heart." A shiver ran down my spine, equal parts awe and apprehension. The living map was no mere artifact. It was a bridge to something profound and unfathomable. And with this revelation came the undeniable truth that our journey was far from over, it had only just begun. "We must proceed with utmost care," I said quietly, meeting Lena's steady gaze. "The map's secrets could change everything, and attract dangers we cannot yet imagine." Malik nodded solemnly, "Indeed. But knowledge, once glimpsed, cannot be unseen. We are bound now, by history and fate, to follow where it leads." Outside, the shadows lengthened as the new day dawned, and the map, ever shifting, beckoned us onward into the heart of mystery and the unknown. The forest was alive with the sounds of pursuit long before Elias Mercer caught the scent of danger. It was a low hum at first, an uneasy ripple in the air, the faintest crack of a twig under heavy boot, a shadow slipping between the trees. But then the first bullet tore through the undergrowth, a sharp report that shattered the fragile calm and sent Elias's heart hammering against his ribs. "Move!" Lena hissed, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a blade. She was already ahead, swift and precise, blocking a mercenary's charge with the butt of her rifle before twisting him to the ground. The metallic clang of her knife flashing was a brief punctuation in the chaos. Elias scrambled after her, gripping the ancient map tighter as if it were a talisman against the storm. Captain Rourke was no amateur. Elias knew the cold calculation behind the ambush. The mercenary lieutenant had studied their patterns, anticipated their moves, and chosen this moment to strike. The forest, with its shifting shadows and tangled roots, had been their refuge, but now it was a trap closing in fast. Professor Malik stumbled beside Elias, clutching his satchel as he gasped for breath. The map. "It's changing again," he panted, eyes darting to the parchment that now writhed with new symbols and paths. "Something's different. There's a hidden route through the ravine, but it's perilous." Elias barely had time to register the words before a volley of gunfire erupted from the tree line, splintering branches and sending birds scattering into the gray sky. They ducked instinctively, Lena pulling Elias behind a fallen log. "We can't hold here," Elias whispered, sweat mingling with dirt on his brow. "We need to move now." The group surged forward, slipping through the thick underbrush with desperate speed. The map's new path beckoned, a narrow ravine tangled with vines and jagged stones, a corridor of shadows that promised both escape and danger. As they moved, Elias's thoughts raced. The map was alive, yes, but it was unpredictable, its shifting nature both a blessing and a curse. Each dawn brought new possibilities, but each night brought new threats, and now, with Cross's forces breathing down their necks, the stakes had never been higher. Lena covered their rear, firing bursts that forced their pursuers to hesitate. Elias caught glimpses of Captain Rourke, cold and relentless, directing his men with icy precision. The mercenaries moved like predators, silent, methodical, unstoppable. The ravine was treacherous. Loose stones slipped beneath their feet, and the walls closed in as they descended into shadow. Malik tripped once, catching himself with a strangled curse, but the group pressed on. Elias's eyes flicked to the map, the cryptic symbols glowing faintly in the dim light, guiding them onward. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the ravine, a tree limb snapping under weight. Elias spun just in time to see a mercenary lunging from the shadows. Lena was there in an instant, her knife flashing in the gloom. "Striking true! Keep moving!" she urged, breathless but fierce. They emerged from the ravine onto a rocky outcrop overlooking a mist-shrouded valley. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then the mercenaries appeared at the ravine's mouth, their dark silhouettes stark against the dawn. Elias's chest tightened. They were not safe yet. "We need to find cover," he said, scanning the terrain and fast. The group moved toward a cluster of ancient ruins half swallowed by vines and thyme. Malik's eyes lit up with reluctant excitement. These stones, they might offer concealment, and perhaps more clues. They slipped inside the crumbling walls just as Captain Rourke's men spread out, combing the valley with ruthless efficiency. Elias's mind was a whirlwind of fear and determination. This pursuit was no longer a game of discovery, it was a battle for survival. Inside the ruins, Lena set watches while Elias pored over the map. The symbols twisted and shifted as dawn broke, revealing a new path deeper into the wilderness, a path fraught with unknown dangers but offering a slim chance at escape. "We can't let them catch us," Elias said quietly, meeting Lena's steady gaze. "Not just for us, but for the world." Her nod was resolute. "Then we keep moving, no matter what." But as the sun climbed higher, shadows of doubt crept into Elias's mind. The relentless pursuit was wearing them down. Trust, once easy, now felt fragile. Every glance held questions, every silence suspicion. And somewhere out there, Captain Rourke watched and waited, a specter of menace determined to seize the map's power at any cost. The chase was far from over. The night had settled over the encampment like a shroud, the flickering firelight casting long, restless shadows across the uneven ground where Elias Mercer sat hunched over a cluster of maps and hastily scribbled notes. His fingers, stained with ink and the dust of countless journeys, trembled slightly not from cold, but from the weight of a revelation that had been gnawing at him since dusk. The ancient map, alive and ever-shifting, had led him and his companions through countless perils, but nothing prepared him for the sting of betrayal that now lurked within their own ranks. Elias' breath was measured, his sharp eyes narrowed behind round glasses as he replayed the intercepted transmissions again and again. The coded messages were subtle, expertly concealed beneath layers of innocuous chatter, but to him they sang a bitter truth. Someone close was feeding intelligence to General Victor Cross. The man who sought to harness the map's power for domination had a spy, a mole, right in their midst. The camp was quiet save for the crackling fire and the occasional murmur of the night breeze threading through the surrounding trees. Lena Dawes stood nearby, her athletic frame tense, her sharp eyes scanning the perimeter with a vigilance born of years in intelligence operations. She caught the flicker of concern in Elias's gaze and approached silently, a question poised on her lips. "Elias, what have you found?" Her voice was low, pragmatic, yet laced with an edge of urgency. He gestured toward the scattered papers. "Someone here has been leaking information. I've retraced the messages. It's intricate, but the pattern is unmistakable." Lena's eyes darkened with suspicion. "Do you have a name?" Elias shook his head slowly. "Not yet. But whoever it is, they've been careful. We have to tread cautiously." Just then, Professor Harun Malik shuffled into the clearing, his graying beard catching the firelight as he adjusted the leather satchel slung over his shoulder. The usually eccentric academic wore a somber expression, his passionate eyes dull with worry. "I overheard," he murmured, settling on a log beside Elias. "Betrayal is a poison that spreads quickly. We must act wisely." Jade Kim, perched on a nearby rock with a portable device in hand, interrupted, her calm voice breaking the heavy silence. "I'm picking up unusual signal activity about 2 clicks east. Could be a reconnaissance team moving closer." The group fell into a tense silence, the gravity of their predicament settling like a stone in their chests. Elias's mind raced every alley, every conversation, every glance now scrutinized under the harsh light of suspicion. Trust, once their most valuable asset, had become as fragile as the shifting lands the map revealed. The following hours were a crucible. Elias convened the group in the dim tent that served as their war room. Faces were drawn, lines deepened by exhaustion and anxiety. "We need to identify the traitor," Elias began, voice steady despite the turmoil within. "But more importantly, we must not let this fracture destroy us. The map's secret is too vital." Lena nodded firmly. "I'll handle security protocols. No one moves without clearance. We watch each other closely." Malik added, "Knowledge is our weapon. Let us use it to unmask the darkness among us." Jade's fingers danced over her device, eyes flickering with resolve. "I'll monitor all communications and signals. If the traitor tries to send another message, we'll catch them." Days passed in a tense, watchful routine. The group's unity was tested as subtle accusations and wary glances threatened to unravel their fragile trust. Elias found himself retreating inward, his introspective nature wrestling with the fear that his judgment might be clouded by paranoia. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in bruised purples and fiery oranges, Lena called a meeting outside the tent. The group gathered beneath the vast expanse of stars, the cool night air thick with anticipation. Lena's voice was steady as she addressed the group. "We have evidence. The traitor has been identified." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the circle. Elias's heart pounded in his chest. "It's someone we trusted," Lena continued. "Someone who's been close to us from the start." Elias's mind flashed to names, faces, moments. The weight of betrayal settled like a suffocating cloak. The accused stood silently, eyes downcast, the burden of their actions evident. Confrontation was inevitable, raw emotions surfacing beneath the veneer of professionalism. "Why?" Elias demanded, voice cracking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Why betray us?" The traitor's reply was a whisper, heavy with regret. "I had no choice. Cross promised safety for my family. I was trapped." The confession sent ripples through the group, compassion mingled with resentment, the lines between right and wrong blurred by circumstance. Elias exhaled slowly, the burden of leadership pressing down. "We all have sacrifices to make," he said quietly. "But now we must be stronger, for the map, for the truth." As dawn broke, painting the sky in pale gold, the group renewed their commitment. The betrayal had shaken them, but it had not broken them. Elias, standing at the edge of camp, gazed at the ancient map spread before him. It shimmered faintly, redrawing its lines in the new light, a reminder that even in the face of darkness, the journey toward understanding must continue. The question lingered in Elias's mind as the world around him shifted once more. In a landscape where nothing is fixed, who can be trusted? And how far would he go to protect the secrets that could change everything? The hunt for truth was far from over, and the shadows that pursued them were closing in fast. The first light of dawn crept cautiously over the jagged horizon, casting a pale wash of gold across the labyrinth's towering stone walls. Elias Mercer stirred from a restless sleep, the chill of the night still clinging to his skin despite the fire's dying embers. His fingers brushed against the ancient map folded carefully beside him, the delicate parchment warm from the night's breath, yet already pulsing faintly with new lines and symbols. Today, they would venture deeper into the maze where history and mystery intertwined. But first, they had to face the labyrinth's most confounding trait, its ceaseless transformation. He rose silently, careful not to disturb the others. Marco Silva was already awake, his dark eyes scanning the labyrinth's outer walls, as if memorizing their every crack and crevice for the 100th time. Lena Dawes sat a little apart, sharpening her blade with practiced precision, the steady rasping sound grounding her in the present despite the disquiet that wrapped around them like a shroud. Professor Harun Malik was poring over his notes, the lines of an obscure ancient language dancing under the flickering firelight. Elias stepped forward, unfolding the map with reverent fingers. The lines that had guided them here were no longer the same. Overnight, the map had redrawn itself, new corridors and chambers appearing where none had been before, old paths erased like footsteps in the sand. The labyrinth was alive, a breathing enigma that challenged their every assumption. "The walls have shifted," Marco muttered, his voice low but tinged with awe. "Look here, this passage we mapped last night now leads dead-end. But over here, a new path appears." Lena's sharp gaze flicked to the horizon. "That means we can't rely on memory or maps alone. We have to move carefully, watch for changes, and trust each other." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavier on his shoulders. This labyrinth is more than stone and mortar. It's a puzzle, a test. We must adapt or be trapped. Together, they began their cautious advance. The labyrinth's corridors twisted and turned, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and ancient dust. Every step echoed, bouncing off the walls like whispers from a forgotten past. Elias's eyes darted constantly to the map, the shifting lines a beacon guiding them through the maze's deceptive embrace. Hours passed in tense exploration, the group uncovering hidden alcoves and chambers. In one such room, Elias found a stone tablet etched with symbols that glowed faintly under their torchlight. The air was cool and still, charged with a sacred reverence that made his breath catch. "Look at this," Malik said, his voice hushed. "These markings, they speak of origins, of worlds born from shifting lands and ceaseless change. It confirms what the map has hinted all along." Elias traced the symbols with trembling fingers, the ancient script weaving tales of creation and destruction. of balance maintained through endless pursuit. The awe that filled him was tempered by a creeping dread. Knowledge so powerful was a double-edged sword. As night fell, the labyrinth's nature became even more apparent. The walls groaned and shifted subtly, the maze itself alive and restless. Lena took her post at the perimeter, eyes sharp as the flickering flames of their campfire. The sounds of the labyrinth, the creaks, the distant rumble of moving stone set their nerves on edge. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the darkness. A section of the passage they had just traversed collapsed, dust billowing into the air. Marco's quick reflexes saved them from being caught in the rubble, but the path behind was sealed. "We have to find another way," Elias said, breath ragged but steady. His hand hovered over the glowing map, searching for new routes. The group pressed onward, their determination fueled by the map's guidance and the knowledge that each step brought them closer to the world's mythical origin. Yet the labyrinth's shifting nature was a constant reminder of the peril that awaited at every turn. Through the changing maze, their bonds grew stronger, forged in the crucible of uncertainty and shared purpose. Trust blossomed where suspicion had once lingered, and each discovery deepened their understanding of the fragile balance between exploration and exploitation. At the heart of the labyrinth, hidden chambers revealed relics that whispered secrets of civilizations long vanished, and the power that shaped the world itself. The map's true nature began to unravel, a living testament to history's fluidity and the enduring human spirit's quest for truth. But as dawn approached once more, Elias knew their journey was far from over. The labyrinth awaited its next transformation, and with it, new challenges that would test their resolve, their courage, and the very essence of who they were. With a final glance at the glowing lines of the living map, Elias whispered, "We must be ready. The labyrinth will not yield its secrets easily, and neither will our foes." The maze shifted again, and with it, the endless pursuit continued. The tent was a fragile refuge amid the shifting ruins, its canvas walls barely shielding us from the cold desert night. The flickering flame of a solitary lantern cast erratic shadows on the ancient stones around us, lending the scene an otherworldly quality. I sat across from Professor Harun Malik, the eccentric archaeologist whose passion for myths and lost civilizations was as infectious as it was intense. Tonight, however, the usual spark in his eyes was dimmed by something heavier, a weight of regret and vulnerability I had not seen before. Malik unfolded a worn leather satchel, its surface cracked and softened from years of handling. Carefully, he withdrew a series of fragile sketches and faded photographs, each one a relic of a past expedition that had become the bane of his career. He traced a finger over a particularly weathered map fragment, his voice dropping into a reverent whisper. This was supposed to be the breakthrough, the key to a lost city that could rewrite history. Instead, it became my undoing. I leaned in, drawn by the sincerity in his tone. Malik's tale was one of ambition, hubris, and an unrelenting quest for knowledge that ended in discredit and professional exile. He spoke of nights spent poring over cryptic symbols, of promises made and broken, and of a mental loss to the very lands we now traversed. Each word painted a vivid picture of a man haunted by his past, but unwilling to surrender to it. Outside the tent, Lena Dawes stood sentinel, her presence a steadying force against the encroaching dangers. Her sharp gaze never strayed far from the shifting horizon, where the sands whispered ominously, and the threat of General Cross's forces loomed ever nearer. The tension was palpable, a constant reminder that our pursuit of the map's secrets was as perilous as it was thrilling. Back inside, Malik's voice softened further as he shared the personal toll of his failure. "I lost more than just credibility," he confessed. "I lost faith in myself, in the myths I chased, even in the very idea that the past could be understood on our terms. But this map, it rekindles that faith. It demands that we listen, that we learn anew." His words resonated with me deeply. Here was a man who had stared into the abyss of doubt and come back with a renewed sense of purpose. It was a reminder that the path we walked was not just about unearthing the past, but about confronting our own fears and limitations. As dawn began to break, the first pale light seeped through the tent's fabric, casting a gentle glow on our weary faces. I reached out and placed a hand on Malik's shoulder, a silent vow that we would face whatever lay ahead together. In that quiet moment, amid the ruins and the shadows of history, a fragile bond was forged, one that would carry us through the trials to come. The map's shifting lines awaited us with their cryptic promise, and with Malik's rekindled passion, our journey took on new meaning. The past was not lost. It whispered to us in the stones, in the sand, and in the very heartbeat of the earth beneath our feet. And as we prepared to move forward, I knew that understanding these whispers was as much about redemption as it was about discovery. But even as hope stirred, the ever-present shadow of Cross's relentless pursuit cast a cold reminder of the stakes we faced. Trust, knowledge, and courage would be tested again, and the map's secrets would not be surrendered without a fight. With the fragile dawn breaking over the shifting lands, I felt the weight of history settle on my shoulders and the fierce determination of those beside me. The whispers of the past had found new ears, and the journey was far from over.